What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So the other day, we had talked about Take-Two mentioning to their investors that they were looking to remaster several games from their past and bring them up to current platforms, releasing them over the next year or so. Well, now it looks like a new report out of Kotaku is naming one of those remaster projects, and it looks like it has to do with all of the older Grand Theft Auto titles that a lot of people grew up with, and we're going to go over all of that here today and why it is a big deal for the Nintendo Switch. Also, we are going to be talking about Abandoned once again. It's gone completely off the rails at this point. Some are questioning if that patch that they are talking about being delayed is even real, and others are looking far into Blue Box Studios' past, and you're going to want to see some of this. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton, and if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below and ring that notification bell so you can keep up to date with all the uploads here on the channel. And we're going to start today with Kirby, because it looks like the Kirby official website is undergoing some odd changes and alterations, almost like they're getting ready for something. In fact, if you look over here on their subreddit, it was noticed where they say the official Kirby website is being messed with. It most likely could be Nintendo testing out the website, possibly for a new Kirby announcement. And people are figuring that Nintendo would have a Nintendo Direct maybe in September or even October at the latest, and maybe it's time to finally hear about this new Kirby game that's been alluded to quite a bit. Maybe it's a new direction for the overall series after we had Kirby Star Allies be kind of more of the same for Kirby. If they went in a different direction and made it maybe like a 3D style Kirby, that could be pretty interesting. Now, the idea of them playing around with the website, even having like placeholder text in spots where you figure they would have news and information about different games, makes sense that they are just kind of organizing and getting things ready to go for it to go live, potentially after a September Direct. I guess we'll find out in about a month or so. Also, there's been a lot of talk around a game called Splitgate, and I've tried to play it a few times, like a couple weeks ago, and there were a lot of issues when it came to just logging into the game because of the amount of popularity around it. Well, now it looks like they're also looking to move the game to other platforms. That includes mobile devices and the Switch. We can see this over on GameSpot, where they say Splitgate could come to Switch and mobile. Crossplay also a possibility, and it looks like they're also developing the game with the PlayStation 5 and Series X in mind, with a next-gen upgrade on the way. It's just they have to figure out their server issues first, apparently. And what happens is if the servers are full and you try to log into the game, it'll kind of throw you into this queue. And I know at one point we were going on their Twitter account to find out how long it would take until you could get into the game. And sometimes it was a while. There was one point where it was like, 30 minutes. I don't know if I'm going to wait around for 30 minutes in a queue to get into the game. Now, I will be trying it again here soon as they are working out these server issues, and people have told me that it's much faster now to get into the game because it sounds fun. From what I've been told, it's like an arena-style shooter, kind of like almost like a Halo, a bit faster, but also mixed in with like Portal. That sounds pretty fun. So yes, I will be checking it out. It's also good to hear that the popularity is enough to where they are looking into moving it to mobile phones and the Switch. So exciting stuff there for people who are really enjoying this and would have fun with crossplay across all platforms. Oh, and we found out a while ago that Sony was going to be acquiring Crunchyroll for about $1 billion, and it looks like they have now completed that acquisition, and there could even be plans to integrate Crunchyroll services with PlayStation Plus. We can see this over on Eurogamer, where they do say there are also plans to potentially offer Crunchyroll as part of a more expensive premium PlayStation Plus offering. Eurogamer understands, and this does make sense from Sony's standpoint because it cost them $1 billion to get Crunchyroll, which I'm sure will be lucrative for Sony if they use it correctly, which could mean, yes, they could have the PlayStation Plus service that comes with Crunchyroll and it's like $10 more. Maybe they have a service that also comes with that Sony movie streaming service they were trying to do. I think they're testing that still in one region currently, and if they roll that out and they have like a $70 option, like an $80 option for them, where they make a lot of their money is through network revenue and services, and if they can continue increasing that through ways like adding in Crunchyroll, it makes a lot of sense for Sony's bottom line. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Grand Theft Auto. Specifically though, Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, and San Andreas. We had talked about this being a possibility many times now. I feel like this has been rumored for quite a while that we would see remasters of the older Grand Theft Auto games. We have seen Rockstar and Take-Two issue cease and desist orders around certain like fan remakes of the games and modifications and all this, and it seems like it could be leading up to a big release of those 3 games under one SKU for basically all platforms. At least that is according to a new report out of Kotaku, which we can see here, where they do say, while Kotaku can't confirm what all of those teased remastered titles specifically are, that being those 3 remastered projects that were talked about by Take-Two with investors, they say, we can confirm via corroborating details from 3 sources that GTA remasters are currently in the final stages of development. According to these sources, Rockstar is actively developing remastered versions of Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, and San Andreas. All 3 of these games are being remastered using Unreal Engine and will be a mix of new and old graphics. One source who claims to have seen a snippet of the games in action said that the visuals reminded them of a heavily modded version of a classic GTA title. The UI for the games are being updated too, but will retain the same classic style. No details were shared about gameplay, but Kotaku has been told these remastered titles are trying to stay true to the PS2 era GTA games as much as possible. Kotaku goes on further to explain that the studio behind this at Rockstar is Rockstar Dundee. That used to be Ruffian Games, I believe. Ruffian Games worked on things like Crackdown. So interesting here. I guess it would make sense for them to come in and work on some of the remastered Grand Theft Auto games, even apparently maybe pairing it with GTA 5 next-gen patches or like that PS5 GTA 5 game and Xbox Series X version, but also having this maybe as a separate release because, according to Kotaku, they have this plan to be going to everything. And according to them, the current release window is somewhere in like September, October, November, so in that kind of time period, coming out for the PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Series X, S, PC Stadia, mobile phones, and the Nintendo Switch. Now, the Switch is a big deal because we haven't seen these Grand Theft Auto games on a Nintendo platform at all. I think the only Grand Theft Auto game we've really seen is what? Chinatown Wars, and that was just on the DS. So this coming to a home console from Nintendo with the Switch, that's a big deal. And really, if you go a bit further than that, having it on a portable device like the Switch is also a big deal, considering I know they've moved these games, these GTA games, to like phones. They haven't been the best ports, and the idea of having it on the Switch with button controls and all of this is great, because before we had like PSP versions of Grand Theft Auto, and unfortunately we never got that San Andreas Vita release, which, well, the fans had to go ahead and do that one. It would be really cool to see it here on the Switch, and I mean, if they do release that with just I guess these 3 games under one SKU, which according to Kotaku would be digital only, that's a shame, but I guess for them it just makes sense to put these out there like that and kind of test the waters and see if people would be interested in some of these older Rockstar games kind of brought up to newer platforms. Now, there is also one other part that is mentioned here when it comes to Red Dead Redemption, and the idea is that Red Dead Redemption could also see a remaster of its own, although I guess it would have to lean more into like almost remake territory, but these being in Unreal Engine, well, I mean, anything's possible here for Red Dead Redemption, but it appears, according to Kotaku, that could hinge on the performance of these remasters, and I feel like these remasters for Grand Theft Auto, if it is just all one package, 3, Vice City, San Andreas, that is a lot of game there for the value. I mean, seriously, even if they put it out at $60, I would tell you, hey, that you're gonna get a lot of time out of these. These are classics, and if they look good enough, that's the big thing there. It's how much time and effort and how do the games actually look and play. If that's all good across the board, I mean, it's hard to find more value than that in gaming. For me, I'd be picking this up right away. I really enjoyed Vice City, and I really liked San Andreas 3. I mean, at the time was pretty good, but I think Vice City and San Andreas are much better games, and I do hope this comes out like in the next month or so. It's good, it sells well, and then we can come back here next year and start talking about a Red Dead Redemption remaster, because I know there are a lot of people calling for it, and I think that'd be really cool to see. So we'll find out, I guess, here in a bit when this would be revealed and announced. It seems that Kotaku is pretty confident on this one, going to 3 different sources, and I assume if it's coming out, say, in October, this most likely has hit marketing, and that's why Kotaku is pretty confident about it, because it is getting ready for a reveal. And where could they reveal it? Well, I think the most obvious place would be in a Sony State of Play alongside of the GTA 5 next-gen marketing push. They could say, oh yeah, we also have a bunch of other Grand Theft Auto games coming out as remasters built on Unreal Engine, dropping this fall alongside of this patch. So exciting stuff from what we're hearing with Kotaku on these GTA remasters, and here's hoping we have a Sony State of Play maybe here in a bit where they can get all this stuff announced. Next up, let's talk about an update around this abandoned situation because it's just gone completely off the rails at this point. A lot of people were expecting that application to come out. They have this teaser. Oh wait, it's Kojima. This whole thing really is Silent Hill. It's basically a reimagining of PT and it's finally going to release. Yeah, it didn't happen. Instead, everyone's kind of just hanging out still right now, waiting for something to happen with this abandoned project. Unfortunately, it looks like nothing most likely is going to happen. We can see this over on Twitter. They did put this out online. This was August 11th, around afternoon time, 2:30 p.m. Eastern, where they said, we won't be delaying the patch to a specific date, but release it as soon as we have resolved it. On behalf of the BBGS team and everyone involved with Abandon, we thank you for the patience and apologize deeply for the inconvenience. Then they just kind of went on a bit of a tweet storm here yesterday where they said, we ask everyone to calmly wait for the patch. We understand your frustration. We are 100% real and are working on a passionate game we believe in. This is what happens. Good that you have to reassure everyone that you're 100% real. We dealt with multiple engine issues that occurred last minute after we spotted a graphical glitch. For that, we wanted to do a quick update. We are almost there as most of the testing is completed. We would like to thank you again for the patience and apologize for the inconvenience. So the thing I'm confused about here is if it got to this point where you have to completely delay your real-time experience, just call it a day and release the trailer on YouTube. Like, is this whole thing that groundbreaking? Because from what we've seen so far, it does appear to be a lot of assets taken out of like the Unreal Engine Epic store. So far anyway. I mean, the idea of the real-time experience where you don't have to go through YouTube, I mean, that could be cool for some of Sony's big first-party titles like the next God of War or Gran Turismo, but like this Abandoned project being the first one to use it, I don't know about that. Just drop the trailer on YouTube now if you're having these kind of issues to where you can't even show the game off. But take a look at this. This was over on Twitter as well from Imran Khan, who noted that none of the usual PSN patch trackers are reporting a patch submitted for the Abandoned app, which is curious since they say one is coming. So not a lot of confidence there, but then also take a look at this. This appears to be a ton of information that was compiled, posted up on Reddit, all about Blue Box Game Studios and their history dating back to 2015. And tell me if this sounds familiar to you. This was in 2015, announced a horror game called Rewind, delayed the playable teaser for this game, again, playable teaser, maybe a real-time experience, because of technical issues, said it'll have VR, then announced they canceled VR, canceled the Kickstarter, said the game development is on halt, and they'll tell us when development continues, said they have a new project, announces that development is resumed. The game was never released and the website was deleted. And the information here continues to go on and on and on about like 4 different projects that they did this with, where they hyped it up, acted like it was this next big project, this next big mind-blowing experience. Then it never came out. Some they released were just broken games. And now I'm sitting here wondering, how did Sony let it get to this point? Because it's been pointed out by a couple of people, even on like Nate's podcast, Nate the Hate, where MVG and Nate were talking about it, MVG having experience developing 4 different platforms, wondering how did Sony allow like this application to go through like the process of being greenlit for the store and being downloaded on all these PS5s. They even propped it up on their own blog, which technically you can pay money for that. I think people were saying it's like $10,000 or $20,000 and you can have your game, whatever it is, I guess, propped up by Sony on their PlayStation blog. But still, you feel like Sony would step in here and be like, okay, this is kind of making us look bad now because you guys keep even talking about the PlayStation 5 and the haptic feedback. And I know it's not Sony technically, but there are people out there who are probably looking at this like it is Sony because it's on the PlayStation 5 platform. And at this time, I don't think anything's going to happen. I kind of think Blue Box is just going to go away. I mean, we heard here from one of their previous projects, they just deleted the website. So, I mean, I hope they prove me wrong. I hope they come out and it's this really cool game and everyone's like, okay, at least this is something. It might not be Kojima. In fact, I doubt it is, but here we are now, I guess, hanging out waiting for a patch to go through that no PS5 patch tracking site has picked up yet, and I don't know, we'll see what happens with this one, but yeah, it's going completely off the rails. People have looked into the history of Blue Box, and not a lot of confidence right now in this studio to deliver this real-time experience with Abandoned. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Game Pass and the Switch once again. This has been a rumor going around for what feels like years now, but Phil Spencer made an interesting comment around the idea of an Xbox Game Pass app on the Switch in a recent interview on Games Radar, which we can see here. When pressed around the idea of Game Pass coming to the Switch in the form of some sort of application. This from Phil Spencer saying, you know, it's the right question because people usually ask me about releasing one individual game or another, and what I say is I want the full Xbox experience to be something that we deliver. We have no plans to bring it to any other kind of closed platform right now, mainly because those closed platforms don't want something like Game Pass. There's a ton of open platforms out there for us to grow in, the web, PC, and mobile, so all of our focus, frankly, is on those platforms. Now, I don't really expect Phil Spencer to just come out and say, oh yeah, we're moving the application to the Switch, get ready, it's coming this fall, just in an interview here with like Games Radar, for example, but it didn't sound like talks were going well, if they're going on right now, for Game Pass to go to something like the Switch. And I feel like people are looking at that like, hey, that would be a great idea considering there are games that just are not being moved to the Switch, and having at least the option of cloud streaming some of these games would be nice, considering we've already seen some studios do that, right? Like Control, Hitman 3, that you stream it from the cloud through your internet to play those games. So having Microsoft's first-party titles through maybe a curated Game Pass application that utilizes the power of the cloud to bring these games to the Switch would be pretty cool. But on the other hand, if you think about it, Nintendo might be trying to figure out the monetization of that and how it benefits them, and on the other side, how it could hurt them, considering some people may just subscribe to Game Pass, play Halo or Gears of War or Forza or something on their Switch and not go off and buy like a Mario Kart or Splatoon or something. It could end up cutting in to Nintendo's bottom line, and that's, I'm sure, something they're very mindful of, and that's probably, if they did, why the talks would have broken down and why Phil Spencer is kind of more talking about the open platforms, like through your web browser. So we'll see if anything ever really shakes out from this whole talk around Microsoft and Nintendo getting together for like a Game Pass application. I'd like to think it's possible, but right now, I'm not exactly holding my breath on it. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, have you had a chance to play Grand Theft Auto San Andreas? And get ready for this one, because 34% of people who voted say that they have not played Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, and that is incredible to me when I first saw that, and then I realized, oh yeah, that game's kind of old now. And I saw some people in like the comments say that this poll made them feel old, and it makes sense why we are seeing more and more of these remasters, even from like the Wii era where we just had Skyward Sword, because there are a lot of people who probably, I guess Xbox One, PS4 even, were like their first systems that were just theirs and they had to share with like their brothers and sisters or any of that, right? And the idea of going back to the PS2, the GameCube, and the Xbox probably feels ancient to them. So if you have not played Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, or San Andreas, and this remastered project actually ends up being a thing, it's a collection and it comes out, that is a ton of value there, and I recommend picking it up and trying out San Andreas, because I think that game being redone in like Unreal Engine would hold up really well, and it's certainly worth checking out. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Speed saying, Theory, Halo Infinite's release date will be revealed during Gamescom. I think if they were going to do any of that, it would be before Gamescom. Just put the release date out there, they can push it in a press release, and they can just post it on Twitter, and that would be enough. I mean, we've already played the game, we're just waiting to find out when it's going to release, and if they have that release date out ahead of Gamescom, they can use Gamescom as a nice marketing push to just kind of further the reach and their advertising around Halo Infinite with a nice release date right there. So if anything, I think they would do it ahead of Gamescom and then just use Gamescom as kind of a stop on their marketing tour for the game. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button, it really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today, like this Grand Theft Auto remastered trilogy, that being 3, Vice City, and San Andreas. Do you like the idea of that? And would you be picking it up, and which platform? Also, What about this whole abandoned thing? Like, are we done with this now, or do you think there really is some master plan that's finally going to be revealed? Thanks guys for watching. Have a great weekend. I'll see you back here Monday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time for Newswave.